This meeting.
All right. So, good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on professional certification program in technical writing, API documentation, and information architecture. So, as you people are engineers from IIT Roorkee, so certainly you will be familiar with these terms, which is the technical writing. Maybe you might be knowing about it, API documentation, APIs, you must be knowing about it if you are working with the code and all that. And then information architecture. So this webinar will talk, in this webinar, I'll be explaining that why exactly we are offering this certification program to engineers specifically, and how will it be beneficial for them in their career ahead. So, and just a welcome note. So, uh, thanks for joining this webinar, and we have following agenda for today. So I'll be introducing myself, who I am, and then also I'll be talking about MetaPercept, the company who is conducting this webinar, and why are we conducting this webinar. I'll talk about that also, and then we'll be talking about understanding the relevance of technical communication in the engineering field. And in the engineering field, mostly with the AI as the new thing happening in the industry today, every company is looking for AI implementation. What role does the API documentation with data XML or docbook kind of structured semantic based content plays an important role? I'll be talking that also. And then we'll be learning about what are the career prospects if you take up this certification, then what are the career prospects for you all going forward. And it is a 40-minute session, and then 20 minutes we'll be keeping it for question and answer, 20 to 15 minutes. And moving to the next slide, it is about me. My name is Amit Siddharth, and I'm a technology enthusiast. I have been in this industry for almost 25 years now, and I have been working as a data XML expert with many companies as a consultant. And I founded this company around 10 years ago in the 2016, and we are one of these exclusive data XML or structured documentation consultants and solution provider in the Pan Asia region. And we have been working with all these MNCs who are looking for uh, content processing from unstructured to structured. And uh, then I'm also part of two more companies where I'm working as a CTO with one company called Data Expresso. And then the other one is Apps at Cloud, which is a New Zealand based company. So there I'm working as a director. Now, we as a company, MetaPercept, has been into information solutions and services, and we have been trying to solve problems related to information challenges that companies are facing. When we talk about information challenges, which is basically that there is so much of scattered information, and when it comes to accessing those information and utilizing the information for right purposes, then they find it very difficult. And then there is legacy issues in the information, like a lot of duplication is there, ambiguity is there, which is causing more problem in utilizing that information piece in today's date when they have to use that information for AI enablement. So we have been working in this area for almost 10 years as MetaPercept, but I have been working from past 25 years. And this is where we are trying to solve this problem. And our AI expertise in content retrieval, content ingestion, and content retrieval has started in the year 2017 when we exactly started working on an AI project. So before even people were thinking of AI based content retrieval, so we were working from that time. Now, the purpose of this webinar is to help engineers transition into high impact careers through technical communication skills. So, when I say technical communication, it does not mean verbal communication or written communication. It means the way the content is prepared or created, which will be used by the machines. how it will be consumed by the machines, how it will be distributed across different platforms, and utilized by the end users. So, this some of the common forms of technical documentation examples that we see. If you go to the Microsoft support site, you type in for a query and then you get the results. If you go to Google developer site, you get to see the help files. Just imagine that the Android uh, platform was developed and there was no documentation available. How difficult it could have been for those developers or those companies who planned to utilize that open source. So, without the technical documentation, things are not easy at all for no matter whichever company it is. And this is where all these big companies or small companies kind of built their knowledge forum or knowledge portals or knowledge systems where they maintain that content or technical content, and eventually with that technical content becomes the intellectual property for that company, where they mention that it is a copyright information and then it is a proprietary tool. So when 4 decades ago, the softwares were built, they were all proprietary. Hardly was there anything being worked through open source. Then 20 years ago, open source was introduced. 20-25 years ago, open source was introduced, and more contribution to the open source content started happening. However, they were all unstructured and scattered across different platforms. And when I was working with the Linux Foundation project, my main role was there to accumulate and gather all information related to Linux operating system so that developers can use the developer portal, have all information access from a single place. So, because obviously Linux is a distributed system, because any other company can get their libraries, get their SDKs, and build their own operating system with the name Mandrake, Debian, anything like that. They can build Red Hat. So, but the original company or original organization is the Linux Foundation. Now, technical communication is not new. It has been always existing in the industry, and it started long back in the 1800s. And in the recent time period, when I say recent, it is like 40 to 50 years, when more and more emphasis to technical communication was given, because we needed some standard operational procedures to implement coding, implement some operations working at the, let's say, manufacturing area, in the IT area, in the power system, like power and energy sector. So everywhere the standardization started getting implemented. So somewhere it was for medical domain, it became FDA rules. Then for the industry related to manufacturing, aerospace, there came the ISO standards. And based on all these standards and guidelines, the documentation must be available, because there were consequences related to those product development or manufacturing, that can be an industry hazard which can be avoided if things were properly documented. Then there can be a data backup issue for, let's say, storage company, if they do not mention that, okay, have the backup before you uh, upgrade the system, something like that. If something has to be upgraded, operating system has to be upgraded, then it is always advisable to take the backup. So all these things, because we are dealing with the information, lots and lots of information, and mostly related to customer data, which is actually the commercial information, we can say, where every bank's health organization, everywhere, they have to follow the protocols for safeguarding customer data or safeguarding the financial data and all that. And this is where, when someone is using the software application or someone is driving an automobile, they would need to follow certain standards. They would need to follow certain standards to maintain and service it. So during this period, MetaPercept has been working with couple of customers. When I say couple of, it means more than 300 customers we have, and these are a few customers we have listed here in these two slides. And we are very working, so we have experience working with the high end technology domain, like virtualization, then orchestration and all that for the storage domain. We have worked with, then with the aerospace domain we have worked. We have also worked in the fintech domain, medical domain. So we have expertise in and the SMEs available in all these domains. And who are these SMEs? So these SMEs come from the engineering background, also having understanding about information, how exactly the information will be consumed, how it will be distributed, what will be the impact of this information, whether it will create a good user experience or bad user experience. All that thing revolves and evolves around information. So, this is why communication matters. And as engineers are the people who work on the core of these product development or manufacturing, hence it becomes very important for engineers to understand the communication or technical communication part of the engineering as well, because you also know that you have a subject related to communication and information management in your engineering. So, why is that subject? Because information is the source of everything that we do. So, if we do not have information, how we will even be able to travel from one place to the other? Which means for everything to exist around us, information is the core of everything that we do. And this is the reason. And when we develop a product or manufacture anything, there also information in all parts, bits and pieces must be available in the right order, in the right format, and no one else can understand the importance of information than engineers. Until a decade ago, 10 years ago, technical communication was mostly grammar and language oriented, because the more and more focus was towards the service side of business or technical communication, because technical writers from India were working as part of the back-end services of many companies and writing technical documents. And hence, those technical writers were mostly from the language background, language and communication background, like BA in English, MA in English, or from mass comm and journalism, because they had some good writing skills. But 10 years ago, some deep level research started in the AI, and especially in the content side, content retrieval, management, training the AI, all these areas. And the evangelist in this area, they figured out that if we go with the unstructured method, it is going to be very difficult. So let us go with the structured method. The ingestion process will be structured, and that entire structured content can be an excellent piece of information to train the AI models, and hence the hallucination can be reduced. But how to do that? Because technical writers who were coming from the language background or mass comm background were not so keen on developing high end technical knowledge. They were okay with documenting the UI of a product. They were documenting up till the API documentation, also, they were all good. But when it came to studying the code and understanding information from the code, that how this code is going to function, what will be the impact, what will be the results, and if some exceptions happen, how to handle that. So these kind of limitations always happened with the non-engineer tech writers, and because of which most of the high-end tech writing job was still being done in the USA, Europe, and any other countries from where the projects would come to India, because India was in most of the cases, India was considered as a service-oriented country where engineering was offered as services, where developers would only be coding, irrespective of whether they know the product in and out, whether they know the product at the architecture level or not. However, then there were some engineers who smarted out really well and developed their career in the right direction, or they got opportunity to work. But still, when it came to explaining a product from end user's perspective, or documenting the product in a more technical way, which can be understood by the machine, that was still the missing piece. And that is where MetaPercept thought, we have been training people as a technical writer in the API documentation side, SDK documentation side. We have been training people from past 15 years. Uh, However, we thought, why not train the engineers who really have to work on the ground with the code? And these are the engineers who will be eventually working with language modeling, and who will be working with the other aspects of information that can be simplified and used for the AI, because AI is the future. We all know that. Now, being an engineer and also a technical communication expert, how it is going to help the industry, we will cover that also. And as an engineer with technical communication expert, you can see that collaborating between the teams, it gets easier. Software development becomes far more easier for the engineers to understand, and for the entire team, because once the documentation is available, everyone knows that, okay, this is where I go and I will look for the information. Then for the hardware manuals, things are being documented, compliance and user guides. So when we write the all the compliance related stuff, let's say copyright, etc., legal matters, then we are able to resonate with the technology and get things in line. Or even if there is a contract, subscription contract or something, then from the engineering background, we know that, okay, this is how this is going to work for this organization. So I had a friend during my first job who was an instrument engineer from IIT Kharagpur, and he was given a job to write contracts. Imagine. So, so you never know that what kind of task can be given to you. Just because you are an engineer, your approach is more logical towards something, and this is where you have to leverage technical communication as part of your entire work also. So here, okay, this image was generated using AI. That's why there is some typo here. And so this technical communication essentials versus engineering skill, how it gives the career growth. So as an engineering person, if we have look at the career growth, so it is a kind of a growth which goes steadily. However, if you have the combination of technical communication, which is how do you write the PRDs, like product requirement documents, how do you explain the architecture, present it, and all that, then it helps you shine in the team, and it shows that you know something extra, or you are putting extra effort more than the engineering side of like the coding side, or anything else. Other than that, also you are shining and expressing about the product, how exactly it will help. So when we talk from the technical writing perspective, the technical writing is actually existing in all kind of industry domain. You can see that right from simplifying complex technical concepts to creating manuals, FAQs, standard operational procedures, and with the audience first approach, all these industries are going to benefit. So technical documents come in various shapes and sizes, and for each industry it is different and based on a different standard. So for manufacturing and industrial engineering, these are the technical documents that are often used and referred, and these also go for ISO audits. These documents has to go for ISO audits, and once the product is certified, let's say I'm building some earth mover like JCB and all that, or Caterpillar earth mover, and I do not take care of the ISO standards based on that. I do not include the safety guidelines. Then my product will never be allowed for selling in the market because it must comply with these standards. And also, if there is a service and maintenance related stuff mentioned in in these documents, everywhere I have to give the end user some kind of hint notifications that these are the precautionary measures that you must be taking to perform this task. So that's why you will see a lot of notes, caution, warning, danger symbols in these user manuals. If you take one of the user manual of your car, you must be having a car at your home, or if you buy any hardware product in which can cause safety hazard issues like a mixer grinder or microwave, you will see they provide a manual with that. All these branded companies provide a manual, and in that they mention about all the safety guidelines as well. And if you do not comply to those safety guidelines, if something goes wrong with your product, they are not liable for the warranty of that product. So all these things are standard based and complies to these industry standards and must be documented. When we talk about the software and IT domain, you can see all these documents are vital to the product success because API documentation, if you do not have good API documentation, then imagine how will the developers be able to quickly learn that how to integrate the APIs. That will not be possible. It will be time consuming. So API documentation, user guides to use some application, software application like SAP. It's such a huge software and it has so many modules. Just imagine that for each module, if there is no user guide, how will people learn it? How will industry use it? Then comes the release note. What was the fixes done in this release? What were the fixes? Like what are the workaround for certain thing? Then what are the limitations with this product? All these things are documented in the release note for each releases because every product goes through different release cycle. Then comes the installation and configuration guidance. Same way we have system architecture and SDK documentation, which are very much vital to the engineering domain for software and IT industries. Then in the healthcare and medtech and life sciences sector, again, this is very industry specific and standard specific. Without having all the guidelines fulfilled and regulations followed, no medical healthcare product can be sold in the market. So it is an industry norm, and these are all audited before it is even launched in the market. So you can understand that how all products has to be documented and how important is the product documentation or other kind of documentation for these products. So who manufactures the medtech product? Let's say CTC scan machine or MRI scan machine. It is the engineers who will be developing it, okay, who will be manufacturing it, who will have to work on the service and manual maintenance side of it. So all that needed to be documented. Then comes the aerospace and defense. All aerospace engineers, right from the manufacturing to the maintenance side, even maintenance at the airport, uh, who takes care of all the pre-flight and post-flight maintenance activities, must be aware of what need to be done, whether they have followed the right guidelines and standard operational procedures or not. All that has to be logged, all that has to be recorded. And this is again where technical documentation is extremely important. uh, Around 9 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago, we worked with one of the aerospace companies where we had to migrate there around 50 kgs of documentation. I'm telling you in kgs, kilograms, 50 kilograms of documentation in a digital format so that pilots can have that documentation in a digital format on their iPad, and they do not have to carry those 50 kg documents, manuals in the aircraft, and they can just tap it on the phone and access that information. So just imagine that the volume of content just for the pilot, how much it was. Then automotive, it is again same case as we have it for the aerospace domain. All these documents are extremely important for the automotive domain companies. Then comes the fintech and BFSI. Here, right from the API, payment gateway, API integration, SDK documentation, process documentation, we have worked with one of the India's premier banking software called Finacle, which is introduced by or sold by Infosys EdgeVerve. So EdgeVerve is one of the association companies who associated with, like acquired by Infosys, and EdgeVerve is the company that is responsible for managing, selling, maintaining, developing the Finacle banking software. And that software is used by almost, I can say, 60% of the banks across India. So all your bank account opening, everything has to be done on Finacle, whether you buy, get the home loans, car loans, anything, or you open an account. If it is corporate, everything is done through Finacle by these like State Bank of India. Then you have Axis Bank. They all use that software. Now imagine that if there was no process documentation, how difficult it will be for those people, bank employees, to get trained to use the software. If there is some upgrade happening, not it is not the Infosys that will go and do the upgrade, it will be some third party who will be doing that on behalf of Infosys. So if there is no product specification sheet, how will that third party be able to perform those operations? So all these things even are important in the fintech and BFSI domain. In the research and academia, again, this is very important because latex is the format in which text is the format in which most of the research papers has been written so far. And text is not a structured format. It is structured in terms of you get all those tags, semantics, in the order that you want, but then there is a reusability issue with that, and then there is search issue with that, and the output is PDF that we get. However, if we want to feed it to the AI, uh, or ingest it for the AI, then we again have to extract information out of it, make it more reusable content, and then push it into the AI system, ingest it in the AI system. So here again, in the telecom and networking domain, the technical documents are of high importance. So you can see that there is not a single business domain or industry domain where technical documents are not needed. Everywhere, in each domain, wherever there is manufacturing development happening, technical documents are needed. Now, as an engineer, how do we bridge the gap between tech and the users? So definitely engineers have the logical approach to solving some problems. And this logical approach, if we use that to express how product work or how the code has to be implemented, then it can shorten the onboarding time for many software development teams, many users, technical users like implementation engineers or deployment engineers like third party. So if there is proper documentation, and which the documentation which is being kind of reviewed by the tech writers, having the engineering background, then that sets more clarity on the entire approach of using the product, deploying the product, or maintaining the product. And as I say, that bridging the gap between tech and users, you can see that engineers often design brilliant systems that go underutilized. Now, it has happened many times that because of not having good technical documents available to support the product did not work in the market. It was not accepted in the market. And that was where issues happened, and the companies had to shut down their operations. Then documentation, or even the document was not available, technical documents were not available, the support cost increased. because there was a lot of back support calls going to the back end teams. They were looking for information, then they were trying to solve the problem without the documentation or without having appropriate information. Then these things always cause delays and money, loss of money to these companies. Then comes the documentation ensures adoption, usability, and success. And these are the points I would like to bring into your notice, that you can understand how, if you are an engineer and you have expertise in technical documentation, how can you solve these challenges and bridge the gap between technology and the users. So the users is not always the end users, layman users, but the users can always be anyone who is using the product or the code or the specifications to build a product. Like whenever an automobile company manufactures something, so they give that specification to some third party OEMs rather, and they follow the specifications and then they manufacture it. So not any automobile company would be manufacturing each and everything on their own, right? So they outsource many things, and those when they outsource it, all that documentation has to be provided to the OEMs. So here we can see that product spec for hardware devices, all these things are needed, and this is where engineers can bridge the gap. Then, as we say from the IT domain side, we always say your words make code work, which means if there is a properly well documented and properly written API guide or SDK guide in a stepped order, explaining that what is supposed to be installed when, how the configuration will be happening, all that activity, if it is done, you will see that you take lesser time to get ready with your system. Okay, environment readiness to code and everything, if you have good, very good documentation available. But if you do not have documentation, what do? You go ahead with trial and error approach. You try it, if it is working or not, then you try with other library if it is working or not. And this is the situation that was there 20 years ago. However, still this situation is there with many companies because they do not maintain a proper documentation for their proprietary product, and this is where the issues happen, because not every company would be working using the open source. There will be companies who are still managing their legacy products, legacy code, still trying to make it flexible to merge with the open source. And this is where your expertise in engineer with the tech communication or tech writing skill can be very helpful for such companies. Now, structuring knowledge with purpose. So, as we say, AI is vast. It can we can feed in ingest as much content as we want, but if the content is structured and has semantics, intent based taggings, or context based information available, then AI will be more AI will be able to predict right information in the right direction and will be able to give good results. So it will be less hallucinated answers that the users will be getting. So when we talk about logical organization of content, so if we write any document using MS Word, you can see that after heading 1, I can uh, just insert a table. That is not the right approach. Okay, definitely I have a title, but that is not the right approach, because in that case, there will be any heading other heading 1, and that can cause issues in the structuring of the content. And same way, there is markdown, which has syntaxes. Still it is not considered as a structured content, because then we cannot reuse some piece of content in that. So there are different methods, like structured documentation methods like data xml, docbook, which goes in a topic based approach. We all know Lego toy. So we know that each and every piece has its own intent and is meant for a specific purpose, and we can use or reuse those pieces to build a new structure every time, which is going to be a correct structure if we have used the pieces at the right place. So same way data also works, and same way all that structured content is utilized by the uh, AI. So here, just a small description of how it goes. So everything in data is topic. It contains some metadata, it has some content, and it has some references. And this is how the logic is built using the help of schema, data open toolkit schema. All these topics are related to each other, referenced to each other, and if even I move one topic to the other topic, or I reuse one topic in the other document, it will have the relation maintained, which is why it is easy to track what is where or where it is used. Then data is modular, reusable, and intelligent content because it contains metadata. So it is easy to track that content. So within the topic itself, we can have different kind of metadata like author values, copyright values, product categories, index terms, etc. And we can make that content more searchable and more reusable. So what is data? So data is a Darwin information typing architecture. MetaPercept has been working with data since 2010. However, formally, it started in the year 2016 from MetaPercept side, but I have been working in data for almost 20 years now, I think. Yeah. So we are a company which has been working in data since almost 15 years, and we have used data based documentation for more than 200 customers so far. And this is why it matters for the enterprises also that we create modular content, reusable content, and which can be fed into the AI systems to develop RAG model and all that. And careers that blend engineering and writing, we can say that you can look at the bullet points here. Technical writers like engineers can become technical writers, engineers can become API documentation specialists, information architect, content strategist, and UX writers. And eventually you can become CTOs and all level that you dream of in any organization if you have a combination of engineering plus technical communication. So why now is the right time? So as I said, there is a lot of demand for tech writers in the market. We recently came across one company who was very specific with their requirements. They said we need engineers only for tech writing profile, and those engineers who are very well familiar with the technology domain like networking and telecom, and they are very well versed with all the protocols, networking protocols, how a BSS or OSS system works, and what are the things needed in that. So they should be aware of all those details. And we were having really hard time, still we are having hard time finding these engineers with the tech writing skill set. So imagine that there is a company who is ready to pay 35 lakh per annum or 45 lakh per annum for an engineer with the tech writing skill, and we are unable to get that. Hardly one or two engineers we could find till now. And this is the demand which is going to increase in the market, because I have seen this market growing from past 2 decades. And earlier, as I said, non-engineers are a bit reluctant in learning technology, and hence who will take this ownership? Then it is engineers. And as we have so many engineers passing out of uh, uh, colleges every year, it gets difficult for all the engineers to get a job also. However, people having some specialized skills like technical communication, they have high probability of getting a job. Okay, so Now we get to the questions. So please feel free to ask your questions, and I will be able to answer you. You can unmute yourself and ask any question if you have.
So as you said that technical communication skills are very important. So what would you suggest of us to as third year students to do that we can learn it before placements or intern season?
Yeah, so we can talk to your college and conduct some workshops for you people to understand how it is going to benefit you and where exactly it is used. So at least at the college level, you can add it in your resume. And definitely, this is a definitely a guaranteed thing I'm saying, because we have tried it out with one college. It was not like IIT. It was a second, like a B level accredited college, uh, like some college from Andhra Pradesh. I think I remember. I do not remember the name exactly. It was 7 years ago. We talked to them, but when we conducted this workshop for them, it was a paid workshop, definitely. But when we conducted this workshop for them, 70% people got placed who had taken up this course, and all of them were well placed and they are still working with some of the other companies. But then when we did a survey to understand what was the main reason for these people for the placement and get hired, then we got to know that they had additional skill, which is technical writing skill, and they were easily trainable once they were onboarded with the company, and they were given these additional tasks. So what happens with big companies like Infosys, Wipro, that they do the campus placement, but most of the time they put people, engineers on bench because they have to undergo the training. Like Accenture, Infosys has this policy that you are there with the Accenture or Infosys for 1 year undergoing training within their campus, working on some dummy projects. And when they see that okay, you are doing well, only then they continue with you, else they fire you. And this has been happening a lot in past 10 years. However, people, all the engineers who have taken up some of these kind of additional courses, and they have contributed to the project success while being in the training period, they were not kind of, they did not have to wait for 1 year completion. They were immediately deployed on the projects. And this is where we have observed that tech writers having these, like engineers having tech writing experience, are more and more viable prospects for such jobs where they get immediately placed on projects and they're kind of beneficial for the company also. So definitely we can reach out to your uh, uh, college, and or else you can propose it to your college that you would like to go for such workshop, because these kind of workshops, if you do it externally and mostly from the organizations outside India, will cost one person at least, minimum I'm saying 1,500 US dollars to 2,000 US dollars, whereas we have kept it at a nominal, very nominal rate as per the India market. And as this is a commercial activity, definitely when you put your put these details in your resume, it is going to highlight your resume during the placement.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other question you have?
No, sir.
Okay. So I, with me is Payal, our training coordinator. So I can ask Payal or one of our other training coordinators to connect with your college separately, and let's discuss it forward if we can conduct this workshop for you. All right.
Okay, sir.
All right then. So yeah, as we do not have any more questions, then we would like to conclude this session here. Thanks for your time and have a good day. Bye
Thank
bye.
you, sir.